order on August 6, 2020 at 6:06 p.m. Madam Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Purda,
Here.
Councilmember Overton,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
No.
Vice Mayor Slutin,
Here.
Mayor Kramer.
Here. Okay, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Councilmember Harris, in celebration of your return, would you lead us to the pledge?
Very well. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Ryan did last time. Mr. Purdock, would you lead us in the invocation?
Of course, Mr. Mayor. Our very gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you again and ask that your Spirit would be with us tonight as we try to do the good work and make good decisions for the city of Clearlake, for the people who live here and those who want to come and visit. Father, we ask for a special blessing to be out in our community and in our state and through this country, for calm and for peace, for those who feel divided and anxious, angry. We ask for the same blessing to be out in those who are hurting in the different parts of this world through no fault of their own. We just ask for your blessing and healing to be with them. Father, thank you so much for this day. We say this in the Savior's name. Amen.
And I do know your name is Mr. Jones, by the way. Sorry about that. Okay, as has been now the normal meeting procedures, all items on the agenda will be open to public comment before final action is taken. Citizens wishing to introduce written material onto the record at public meeting on any item are requested to provide a copy of the written material to the deputy city clerk prior to the meeting date. So the material may be distributed to city council prior to the meeting. Speakers must restrict comments, and of course we won't be having any speakers in-house, but all comments will stay within a 3-minute time limit. And I have the discretion as mayor of limiting the total discussion time for any item. Okay, adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any modifications or changes, Mr. City Manager?
No modifications.
I'd like to move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Councilmember Overton and a second by Councilmember Harris. And then Deputy Clerk, could you please call the roll on that?
Councilmember Purda,
Aye.
Councilmember Overton.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Slutin,
Aye.
Mayor Purda, Mayor Kramer. Sorry, it's
All right.
been a long day.
And by the way, I am going to ask you to call the roll on everything just because of the
I understand.
meeting. Okay, Mr. Jones, are there any announcement of actions from closed session?
No, they're not. I'm not a speaker, so if you could please announce that again. That I said there was no report.
Okay, City Attorney Jones announced that there are no actions from closed session. Thank you. Now we will go to public comment. During the August 6, 2020 City Council meeting, public comment will be accepted via mail, via email, and through the city's town hall portal. If you would like to comment remotely, please follow the protocols that are stated, I think, it went out on our website. In brief, that's to send those comments via email to the deputy city clerk at her address. I think there's got all those, or via the city's new town portal. So, they need to identify the subject. Well, I'm not going to go through that because they're all written. Anyway, but they do need to identify the subject of the public comment. And the public comments read will be limited to 3 minutes. So read fast if it looks like you're wrong.
They are.
The Brown Act with limited exceptions does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. And I'll remind everyone of that right Council cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on each agenda item. Comments on those shall also be limited to 3 minutes per person. So, we'll go to Hey, Deputy Clerk, how many about do we have? Public comments?
1, 2. About 16.
15.
15 or 16, yes.
Okay, well, get it going. And again, we're not going to comment on this. And Mr. City Manager, would you? Will you act as a timekeeper?
What's that?
Are you going to act as a timekeeper?
If you like, here.
Since Deputy Clerk will be reading them.
Should I say who they're from?
Yes.
The first letter is from Brian and Brandy Case family. It says, Dear council members, we are very concerned about your plans to possibly move the city public works yard to our Pond Road neighborhood. When my family moved here, we were close to this area we chose this area to raise our growing family because it was quiet and safe, which can be hard to find within the city of Clearlake. If the city was to put the yard on Pond Road, it would greatly increase the traffic on Pond Road where my family walk, run, bike, and ride horses. The noise level would increase as well. There is a great deal of worry about the effects on the water table. All of the neighbors out here are on wells and already have felt the impacts of the growing agriculture developments as well as the droughts. Also, what about the pollutants, oils, chemicals, etc., getting into the groundwater or flowing into the waterways? Every year, there is a significant amount of water that runs across Pond Road and into the creeks. It was very alarming to hear of a plan to move the impound yard out here as well. The July meeting was the first we heard about this. Our neighborhood is private and secluded, and we really have not had any crime to speak of. I believe moving the impound yard out here will impact crime and vandalism, not to mention what an eyesore it will be in one of the untouched areas of the city. I believe that there must be more appropriate places to put the yard that will work for everyone and not destroy a neighborhood, lower our property values, and add to our worries. Thank you for listening. This next one is from Cheryl and Bill Sullivan. Thank you for meeting with all of our Pond Road neighbors in July and listening to our concerns about moving the city yard to Pond Road. Besides all of the concerns I already had about the move, the noise, the water, the light pollution, and already low water table, increased traffic on Pond Road, loss of wildlife habitat, our conversation added another huge concern. I was appalled to learn that the impound yard would also be part of the city yard. Imagine the visual and environmental impact that will have on our established residential neighborhood, not to mention the criminal aspect. No one wants to live next to that, just as no shop owner would like their business next to that, as stated at our meeting about the current site. It is an eyesore from Highway 53 and would be even worse in a residential neighborhood. Although these and other concerns were discussed at the meeting, they still remain and were not lessened by the assurances given. For all of these reasons, the others were voiced at the meeting. I am adamantly opposed to moving the city yard anywhere on Pond Road. I am not in favor of moving it down by the current sewer district buildings. Please allot time in the council meeting agendas to discuss these issues. Please continue to explore and consider other appropriately zoned properties away from the residential neighborhoods for the new site for a city yard. Thank you. Sincerely, Cheryl and Bill Sullivan. This next one is from Vicki Crystal. Dear Council, I would like to say that I am very unhappy with this plan. My property directly accesses Pond Road from your proposed entrance. You have a yard that is not wanted by the dog pound, the potential strip mall owners, and the sewage treatment plant. The residents of Pond Road would also rather not have it. And also, to be considered with a similar reference, you are giving these three other entities. You are also setting precedent. When you say not on this virgin land, you are rightly say, well, the sewage treatment plant is here. So if you do this, then for the next project, you will have even more good reasons to pile more unwanted projects in our neighborhood. Finally, just a reminder that if a private citizen was to do the same project, you would flatly tell them no. If he asked why, you would tell him you have made considered zoning rules to protect the community. Thank you for listening to my concerns. Peter Ben. Thanks, Crystal. Thanks, Vicki Crystal. This one is another one, Vicki Crystal. Esteemed Mayor and Council members, concerns with proposal. Pond Road has also seen an increase in heavy truck traffic due to more companies going in and out of the water treatment plant. More traffic and additional heavy equipment entering and exiting is likely to make the problem worse. Once a foothold is established, here the activities eventually will be expanded to accommodate even more equipment and maintenance activities. Adding additional development in this area without a second means of egress has already been recognized as a potential fire hazard. What will be the impact on our well water and water table, chemicals, oils, and etc., and the concerns of being next to protected open waterways? There is already evidence that our water table is being drawn down in this area beyond its ability to recharge in a timely manner due to the drought in agriculture development close by. Even though the floodplain map do not list the drain through this property, there is a history of significant standing water in the adjoining property and rainfalls that exceed the carrying capacity of the creek downstream. There have to be more appropriate places already zoned for commercial in the city that meet the city's needs. Putting in the yard in this pristine, safe, and quiet neighborhood is a travesty. I understand the argument of NIMBY, but there is so much blight and rundown neighborhoods in Clearlake. Why would you choose a neighborhood where property owners take care of their homes and properties? Why add another blight to the mix of what Clearlake already has? This area is sought after continually by real estate people looking for a nice area to move, people wanting to get out of the cities. I continue to be concerned about the night sky and the lighting. Even down lighting would disrupt viewing of the incredible stars and enjoyment of the huge dark sky in this neighborhood. This neighborhood is one of the best kept secrets in the city. Many more people will become aware of it If this project is allowed to proceed, which likely brings crime to it. The idea to add the AVA cars, which will add noise and light, will definitely bring crime due to vandalism. We currently have very little crime, if any. There are a number of people who come here to walk, jog, and bike because of the peaceful tranquility, beautiful, and safety are part of the overall character of this area. We also have a large, that's it? The next one, dear City Council members, we are writing today to state the reasons why we believe the Public Works Department and Police Impound Yard should not be relocated to a site on Pond Road. We have lived in this neighborhood for 25 years and want the project in this area for current and future residents and visitors. Our first concern is regarding the possibility of contamination of an important watershed area for Clearlake with petroleum and other products that are an inherent part of both maintaining public works vehicles and storage of impound vehicles, as well as the possible asphalt recycling. The surrounding hills drain to these low-lying areas and empty into Burns Valley Creek. This creek runs through neighborhoods and empties into the Clearlake and Austin Park. We have been assured that appropriate measures will be in place to protect our waterways and our health. However, we have all experienced problems with the city's ability to handle stormwater runoff in regard to our sewer system. Because we are a small city in the county of less than 100,000 residents, there are few regulations of which such projects must adhere. Protecting our waterways and thereby the health of the people should be of the utmost importance. A thorough CEQA review would help ensure that the project's safety, even though if it isn't required, is in this instance. Even if all of the potential problems are adequately handled in the construction, monitoring, and repair may not be adequately funded and conducted, leaving the future contamination a concern. Our second concern with this is the aesthetics of this relatively quiet and pristine area of our city. The additional noise, traffic, and lights would decrease the enjoyment of our homes in this area and the residents in both the enjoyment and safety of the people who walk the area for exercise. Property values in the area would likely decrease as a result. Several of the young oak trees planted as mitigation for AT&T building and the yard would have to be cut down and removed to build a driveway for the facility. A considerable amount of disruption and expense will be necessary to build the additional bridge as well as to widen and improve the current bridge and road surface on Pond Road. Although it has been said that a retail development in the area of the current public works and animal control facilities is forthcoming, this area still seems to be much more appropriate site for the city to continue its functions. The area is large enough to accommodate both retail and municipal services. The surrounding area is already occupied by auto repair, storage facilities, and other similar businesses. The area has long been an industrial area initially to support Pierce Airfield and the private aircraft that were housed there. Some of these buildings are still in use in the city for surrounding businesses. It would be great to see a plan that would allow for retail area utilizing as many local businesses as possible and would be buffered from the city facilities by a green space with trees and a walking path. For these reasons, we strongly urge the city of Clearlake to upgrade the public works and impound facilities to keep in their appropriate locations and consider another appropriate areas for relocation. Thank you, Deborah Sally and Ken King. This next one says, as property owners on Old Highway 53 between Nottingham Nursery and the Egg Ranch, we have always appreciated our rural setting. We built our home here in 2001 and we have lived in Clearlake for 43 years. We originally lived by Redbud Park where the traffic was always very busy. Life in and among the walnut orchards with larger parcels of the property has been the highlight in the past 19 years. We both enjoy daily walks and bike rides where we have less traffic. putting a city yard around the corner from our home will definitely change things. It will be much easier, and the large vehicles will be coming down a narrow pond road. We would strongly recommend that all city administration of Clearlake look elsewhere for a more appropriate zoned property away from a quiet residential area. We have witnessed many dog walkers that drive this area to walk their dogs because it is safer and there are not as many vehicles. It is also flat and a pleasant loop to walk or ride. It is our understanding that there are also plans for an impound yard at the same location. That brings some definite worries or questions. An impound yard will bring some negative behavior and unwanted crime at the location. Some change is good, but this kind of change does not warrant any good in our eyes. Please give some serious thought before making a decision. We strongly hope that you will find the perfect location for a city yard away from Pond Road and this one and only quiet rural neighborhood. Thank you for your time and understanding. Sincerely, Jan Fiedler and Dr. Ralph Fiedler. The next one says, I would like to have the following read at the city council meeting. The proposed relocation of the city yard to Pond Road appears to be a stopgap measure that is not in the best interest of the city. The city needs a yard that is in a commercial district because of the noise and the traffic it produces. The Pond Road location is a county-owned property that would be temporary until the county needs land for its sewer plant expansion. In the meantime, the peaceful residential area will be plagued with the noise and disruption of cars being crushed and the additional traffic the yard will generate. Much of it with large vehicles that will stress the narrow bridge at the entrance of Pond Road and create hazardous conditions along the essentially single lane of Pond Road itself. It is hard to imagine a defunct motorhome, for example, being towed along Pond Road to reach the yard without it disrupting the other users of the road. I think the city should find a truly suitable location that it can own. Suzanne Schultz. Oh, this one's hard to read. Okay. I wish to comment on the public works yard and vehicle impound being proposed in our neighborhood on Pond Road. There are many reasons to not put the project here that we have discussed in the city of Clearlake representatives. These include lighting up the night sky, increased traffic and noise, disruption of wildlife and bird habitat, and wet weather waterway, creating a visual eyesore, unnecessary disturbance to adjacent properties, as well as other environmental concerns. The city suggests that these issues can all be mitigated to some standard that our neighborhood should be willing to take one for the team because they have a limited budget and believe that it is the least expensive place to build this project. As a designer builder of custom homes for over 35 years, I respectfully disagree. Our discussions with special districts suggest that the property cannot be sold to the city or a residential developer due to potential treatment plant expansion. And if a leased or short-term use, it would be to a fair market value. In addition, the site has a number of limitations that would make developing it much more expensive than if it were on a less sloping site in a commercial zone and not needing two bridges and road improvements or water, well, and septic system. There are two issues that the city simply cannot mitigate. This project would completely change the character of our distinctly peaceful neighborhood and correspondingly lower the property values for the existing owners that choose this area specifically because of its rural feel. The city has indicated that they believe that this project is allowable under the zoning code if granted a use permit. I contend that the rural residential zone is specifically designed to protect us from this kind of intrusion of commercial type use into our neighborhood and should never even be considered, much less allowed. If this were a business, it would summarily be rejected as inappropriate. Just because you can legally do something doesn't mean you should. Please direct the city administration to consider other locations and abandon any further consideration and expense on this site. If a formal request is necessary, please add a discussion to the agenda of the next available city council meeting so that the people can tell you in person and we can avoid the long and drawn out process of applying for a use permit, environmental review, design, and engaging of any project that the community overwhelmingly does not want here. Thank you for your consideration, Dave Woolsby. Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, it's just this mask is hot. This next one says, I wonder how many of you can answer yes to the question I am about to ask you. How many of you have been to the land that Vicki and David live on? It was one of the first places I was taken to quite spontaneously when I first came to Clearlake 5 years ago. For those of you who answered yes, then I am sure you will understand when I say that to propose a project that would disrupt the harmony of that area, which is very nicely enhanced by the surrounding neighbors, clearly seems like an idea that should quickly be replaced by another. It is a refuge for those of us who live in compacted neighborhoods along blighted properties and for those living in apartment complexes where your access to numerous benefits of unobstructed views and natural beauty is not right outside your front door. For those of you who answered no, I hope you take the time to visit. It is a Clearlake crystal, a place to go and read or write and enjoy the gardens or walk a labyrinth. Sincerely, Lori Burnett. This one says, thank you for meeting with all our Pond Road neighbors in July and listening to our concerns about moving the city yard to Pond Road. Besides all of the concerns I already had, noise. Didn't I read this one? I think I read this one already. Okay, the final one says, I, Barbara Christwitz of 3568 Vista Street, Clearlake, 95422, I object to placing the city yard on Pond Road. Surely a better location can be found or purchased. Pond Road area is one of the jewels of city of Clearlake, with lovely large parcel homes which all have scenic views of gentle rolling hills, sunrises, sunsets, and stars. The pelicans from this past spring were also spectacular there. There is no better spot for watching meteor showers than near Pond Road. I particularly bicycle on Old Highway 53 and Pond Road and hope to continue to appreciate the unimpeded panoramic views of this special place. I imagine the Pomo people were probably inhabited this acreage 100 years ago. It needs preserving. I have spoken with absentee landowners who would like nothing more than to unload their properties as tax write-offs. I have ideas for half a dozen large areas that come to mind, which would be better suited for the city yard. Feel free to call me at, and she gives her phone number, or email for these ideas and names. Some ideal areas for the city yard have been unhoused people living on the land where wildfires burned large swaths. I recommend considering these such areas. In any case, please preserve the beauty of City of Clearlake. Thank you for the work that you do at the end. Signed, Barbara Christmas.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. Everyone, this. So,
Mr. Mayor,
yes, Mr. City Manager.
so I know that, we can't have a discussion about this, but all of these public comments obviously were about one particular project. And so I think the council is aware of kind of what's been going on here, but for those in the public, if I could just give a very brief update on the situation. So, as you're aware, we had a property that was purchased by the city, and then the council determined that it wasn't suitable for our long-term needs. We put that property up for sale, and we've been looking at additional locations in the city that might work for the public works yard. This is one that was identified early on as being a very feasible option, and so we did do some work related to the site. We had a sort of neighborhood meeting out there to talk about that. The mayor and vice mayor both attended that meeting. But just so all of you know, we're looking at other additional sites within the city, and my time's up. And when we have, some type of analysis, we feel like we're in a position based on those options that we come back to the council. Obviously, we will come back, have a discussion, and the council can make a decision on which location makes the most sense.
Thank you, City Manager Flora. So I'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of council or audience requests otherwise, or if staff has requested a change in their adoption agenda, in which case item will be removed for separate consideration. Any item so removed will be taken up following the motion to approve the consent agenda. Do we have any items that council wants to change or request be done separately? Madam Deputy Clerk, are there any items that the public may want to change? Seeing it none, I'll bring it back to council for motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
It's been a motion by City Council Member Burdock and seconded by Council Member Harris. Madam Deputy Clerk, could you please call the
Councilmember Purduck,
Aye.
Councilmember Overton,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Slutin,
Aye.
Mayor Kramer.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. Moving on. To our first business items again. Comments on agenda items will be accepted by email and through the city's town portal. If you'd like to comment remotely, please follow those protocols. And again, any comments so heard will be limited to 3 minutes. So let's go to item number 5. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, so just, I'll give a brief introduction and turn it over to City Attorney Jones. At a previous council meeting under future agenda items, the council directed staff to come back with a review and some information related to adjustments to the city council member stipend. So City Attorney Jones has done some research. There's some limitations on what flexibility the council has related to that. So he'll give an overview for the council.
Yes, thank you very much, City Manager Florida. So Mayor and members of the council, I wanted to give you a brief overview of what the law says with regard to council stipends and salary. And it is set very clearly in the government code, in government code section 36516. And it is based on population size. So the current salary right now in City of Clearlake is $300 per month. And that was approved in 1989. So over 30 years ago, that was the approval at that point. The council has the opportunity, based on the code, to increase it up to 5% per year. So that would give the council a maximum authorization, should it choose, to increase the salary up to $765. Wanted to give you that maximum, give you that range, and tell you what the code allows. It also cannot go into effect until after an election, a general election, when one council member, at least one council member is up for election. So that would be this coming November. Just to give you a little comparison, and it is in the staff report, we pulled a number of cities just to see where we are and how does Clear Lake rank. And population is typically the sort of the biggest determiner, because that kind of impacts about how much time, effort goes into being city councilman, though that's not necessarily the only factor. We wanted to pull out three in particular. Ukiah is at $490 per month, Lakeport at $300 per month, and Cloverdale at $550 per month. So that kind of gives you at least a ballpark of where other councils are in terms of their monthly salary. And so that's the report. It's really based on statute and what the direction is. This is in the ordinance, so if you're giving staff direction to modify this, we need to come back at the next council meeting for a first reading to update the municipal code. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Member Murdoch, Councilmember Harris.
Well, unless I'm mistaken, one of the other aspects is the ability to provide the same benefits packages that are afforded to the employees of the city. And am I mistaken on that? Just beyond the stipend, is there also the ability to provide additional benefits package?
You can do additional benefits package. That's a different discussion. The code speaks to just the salary component. That's what we're talking about here, but it is relevant of what is the total package that a council member gets. If council wants to add other benefits, it could. For example, some councils get a life insurance policy or other sort of additional benefits. But I think your question is more about the medical benefits, and those can be the same as employees.
The medical benefits is one aspect, but a kind of retirement, a life insurance, both of those things are things that I think would be a consideration as well.
Councilmember Rubin. Vice Mayor Sloan.
I have no comment.
Okay, I have no comment at this time. So we'll open it up to the public. Deputy Clerk. Montes, do we have any?
I was personally emailed a couple of comments that I'll go up and read.
All right. Again, 3 minutes limit.
The first one is, I would like to offer a few thoughts on an increase in compensation. First of all, with the COVID pandemic adversely affecting the budgets, this does not seem like a good time to discuss an increase. Second, reviewing the list of cities and compensation given to city council members, it seems Clearlake is in line with what many others are getting. Third, regarding an increase, if in fact council members receive health insurance, it suggests that there has been a significant increase in the cost of the insurance to the city, resulting in a quote unquote raise to council members. Fourth, not only do we need to review the population of similar cities as shown in the compensation list, cost of living in the various locations should be considered. Fifth, we should consider responsibilities in time spent preparing for and attending city council meetings and other meetings designated to city council members. Clearlake is limited service city in that it does not provide fire protection, sewer services, or water services. Not having the responsibility of overseeing those services should reduce the workload. While we should compensate council members for their time and efforts, being on the city council is also a public service to the community. I certainly have no desire to devote the time and energy that is required of a council member, but we are also faced with limited budget to work from. David R. Hughes. The next one I received is, hello and good afternoon. My name is Christopher Harris, and I have been accepted as a nominee for City Council of Clearlake, California. I have filed all my paperwork, and I am very active and compassionate about our community. And like what I have seen from the city council members, my deepest concern is being guilty by association upon my acceptance. As I oppose many of the candidates, I believe last city council meeting, there were attendees that this was a direct violation of the executive order N25-20. There will be a pay raise for the city council members, and I'm wondering if this is something that you think should be approved, considering the fact that you have one of the most filthy and hazardous environments in all of Northern California. We are in one of the largest pandemics in world history, in filthiest city in Northern California, and this is a time for a pay raise. It is a good time. It's probably the best time. There is no audience to object. Overton has been sitting in that chair for 16 years, and I'm wondering why none of the council members, from the mayor, Russ himself, promotes for advocates for the people of Clearlake community joining the meetings. I would like to add that I contacted Andrew White, the chief of police, Russ Kramer, Melissa Swanson, Alan Flora, regarding a special city council meeting about the water pipes deterioration of our neighborhoods and the direct violations. I was ignored. I want to thank Keith Akehart for his contributions and the deterioration of the neighborhood, as well as Lee Lambert for staying silent and at the word of our police chief. We are watching. Thank you, Christopher Harris.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
there's several other comments that were submitted as on the open town hall portal, so I'll just go ahead and read those. That's
All
okay.
right.
So the first one is from Terry Stewart. Regarding the council member's pay increase, in light of the fact that the compensation has not changed in approximately 31 years, and considering the complexity and time commitment involved to do the job, I think an increase in pay is long overdue. I would like to suggest, in light of our current situation, that the compensation be doubled to $600. I think this amount would be more in line with other small cities in our area as compared with the maximum available increase. David Benzina. I live at the end of Cache Creek Lane on the end of Dam Road. Over the years, I've been forced to pay sewer taxes for sewers that do not even hook up to my property, phone lines that don't work when it rains. I am unable to gain internet access to the local provider, Mediacom. My neighborhood is the illegal dumping grounds for garbage and stolen cars. Dam Road hasn't been paved in over 30 years. I don't see we as voters don't get to vote as if you and when you, my elected officials, will get a raise. I'd rather see my taxes go towards services like paving more roads, which is voted on and passed but hasn't really done much, or providing equal access to services, perhaps training so the police force knows that the end of Dam Road is in the city limits. That means they should come when called, not tell you to call the sheriff's department for help. If you'd like a higher salary, then take it out of your health benefits, which are ridiculously overpriced, and purchase your own on Covered California, like the majority of the population you represent. On top of it, there are regulations already on the books stating when you get a raise. When our population grows enough to warrant one, 35,000, fix our roads and sidewalks, clean up the excessive amount of trash dumped on empty lots, and come ask us, the voters, then. This was submitted anonymously. If you give yourselves a raise, liberals and conservatives in Lake County will both turn on you. Businesses are shutting down. Go focus on feeding people, unemployment, housing that matters. People wait on these lists for effing years. I'm going to summarize a few of these words. You have a giant poverty explosion here. There's massive problems from this COVID shutdown, which I support because I don't want people to die. If you want to tax vices, don't put the money towards a raise, or we the citizens will rage. You losers already give the cops most of our tax money and now want to pocket the rest. Sounds like a corrupt police state kind of town. Go F yourselves. You give the cops 70% of the taxes. Most Americans are in jail for drug crimes under 1 gram. For that, we pay $50,000 to $60,000 a year to house addicts. Let them go with no rehabilitation and justify the police hunting them down again in their fancy American flag paint job vehicles that come from our tax money and now economic crisis you want to raise. LOL fascists. Another anonymous one. We are in the middle of a pandemic that's affecting Lake County. We're a city. I thought this was the same one for a second. We're a city in Lake County, last I checked. Why look at raising wage for city council members? It's been over 30 years since there was a raise. Why not wait a few more years, or at least until this issue is over and dealt with? Many people here are poor. Raising taxes will not be the best option for them, as they probably will have to sacrifice bills unless there's going to be a raise in minimum wage. 70% of the budget goes into our police force, and from speaking with officers, there are areas in the Clearlake Park part of town that they cannot go to as the roads are bad on their vehicles. Why not focus on our roads? We also have a homeless issue. Last I checked, we do not have a homeless shelter, and why not look at doing that instead of raising your wages? These jobs are your choice to get into, not ours. We shouldn't be negatively affected because some people don't like their paycheck. I think raising these wages, especially now, will not be a good thing. This should be a last looked at idea, not an idea that comes into play. Well, we've been under lockdown orders since mid-March. Our businesses are affected, our people are affected, getting a job is affected. And that's the last one related to this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. So that's all of the public comment. Bring it back to council.
I have no comment. Mr.
No
Mayor.
comment? Councilmember Harris? Well, just if you have one, I'm just wondering.
I truly believe that a reasonable increase of the stipend would be a fair place to go. I think that the fact that it hasn't been increased in any way in that many years is, it doesn't fall in line with anything else we deal with in our society. And if you would expect to see a wage or any kind of a stipend to support somebody carrying out the duties of a council member, not change in 30 plus years. You never see that with anything else. I mean, obviously the cost of everything has increased dramatically over that time frame. If you, for example, even raised $200 a month to a $500 a month stipend, that's only $12,000 a year in total, $1,000 a month. And I think that's not going to have any impact as far as like the taxes and all these things that were mentioned. And I appreciate the feedback, but ultimately $1,000 a month is going to make really almost zero as far as the impact, but it would help making sure that future council members can get to the council, get to the meetings, get all, to all these different things that are responsibilities of being a council member.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Overton, do you have a comment? Or
Yes, I'll make a comment. First off, I appreciate everybody's input on this, but they must realize that, as I said, not necessarily everybody that sits on this council may benefit from this. We're at election time, and this wouldn't go into effect until, January probably, am I right? Okay, so when we're not necessarily doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the future, and I believe that's why Councilmember Harrison brought it up, was because we are at this time where there may be new council members on, and it does cost to go to these meetings and stuff. I mean, there's times where, some of us are in 3 or 4 meetings all around the county, and the little bit we got is probably gone in a week, so it's not like, I'm suggesting that we keep the 300 and just start doing the 5% raise that should have been being done instead of boosting it up. It's just my suggestion. In the past, I've actually asked for the council not to take the 300 at all. We were really in a bind, but we may have new councils, and so not everybody can afford to go to these meetings. And this is the way that we, I don't know if people realize, but this is the way that we make sure that people who really can't afford to pay for the gas to go to these meetings are still able to get there. So I need them to understand that we're not taking this for ourselves. we're basically taking it for maybe new people that may be sitting here. So, and that's why we're doing it now, so that we're not benefiting ourselves. If we were sitting here and there was no change in council, we wouldn't even be able to do this. So I'm suggesting to just start doing the 5% raise that we should have had in place. And just continue with the 305% raise in January, and just that way we can continue on a regular monthly or regular yearly basis. That's my suggestion.
Vice Mayor Sloan?
I think it's the wrong time to do this. I'm not in favor of it at all, and I propose kind of increase of this.
I feel as Councilmember Harris does, there's not been a raise in 30, almost 31 years. Cost of living has gone up. It's true that I got on this council to help Clearlake, but that doesn't mean that, that this is something that at the moment I lose money. I being on council, and I don't complain about that, but I don't think that the impact on the city at $200 raise a month would be much of an impact at all. When I look at the analysis here that was provided, I guess, through the League of Cities, went to nine cities that fell around our population of about 16,000. And I averaged the salaries for those 9 cities. It came to, I think, $460 or $70. And then went for the last 3 to the closest to us, Lakeport, Ukiah, and Cloverdale. Lakeport is a city of 5,000. They are at $300 a month. Cloverdale is a city of 8,900. They're at $650. $550 a month. Ukiah is about the size as we are, and they're at $490 a month. So the $500 that Councilmember Harris had spoke of, I think, is a fair wage, and it reflects the work that we provide to this city. Certainly not going to get rich on it, and I don't think the city is. It's not going to make that great of an impact on the bottom line of the city for that increased cost. So I would be in favor of the $200 a month increase. Councilmember Harris.
Just one more thing to speak of on this, and this is what was my original point about this, is some of us are in a unique position in our lives that we can afford to participate in our community in this way, to become an elected official, help make decisions that benefit our community. And we have the passion to do that, but we also have the means to do that. And some people have the passion but not the means, and that shouldn't exclude them from being a council member of the city of Clearlake. And that's my firm feeling, because my desire to want to help our community shouldn't be jaded by my financial status. And I think that $300 a month wouldn't even cover a person's ability to get to and from meetings and that sort of thing. It's not about making money, it's about covering their costs of operating as a city council member. Because truly, we all understand that by being on here, $300 a month doesn't make us any money if you factor in the cost of operating. So my objective here is to open up this to more people who have lived in and grown up in and care deeply about our community, but they just don't have the financial means to go about being a city council member, because I can tell you right now that it's way more expensive than $300 a month. Even $500 is not enough to really cover your overall costs of operating as a council member, but it's a step in the right direction. So that's the idea. The idea is that I think it's only fair that every community member have the opportunity to become a council member and make decisions in our city, not just the most affluent.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Are there any other comments? Councilmember Overton.
So your suggestion is exactly what is your idea of the amount that you would like to raise to make it feasible for other people to be able to, I'm saying you're right. I mean, I think all of us spend a lot more money than the $300. That's no question. I mean, I calculated at my first 8 years, I spent over $60,000 doing the things and going to meetings and going to the conventions and all of these other things. So you're thinking $500 a month, or is there a range there that you're looking at?
Well, obviously, as we've already heard, the possibility is to be able to raise it up to, what was it, $765. And obviously, given the situation that we're in, we're not looking to make it a scenario where somebody's gaining ground off of this. It's just not about losing money. And I think that it would be realistic to say that over 30 years, just the simple cost of and fuel and, I mean, you have to gear up to be a council member. Before I took this position, I didn't own a tie. It's a different life, it is. And we just should not exclude members of society because they don't have the financial means to be a council member, so they shouldn't just be immediately excluded for not being able to meet that criteria. So I think that it would be a step in the right direction to go from 300 to 500. And like you said before, this doesn't affect the existing council. So this decision is not something that's benefiting the existing council. This is to make sure that we're getting the right people that truly care about our community, and not people that are just coming on here because they have the access to a financial stability to allow that.
I mean, I think that's, and I, like I said, I agree. This is the reason why we're doing this, is so that the people in the future, we give them, and it is hard to, when we say anybody can run for these positions, we all know that you can run, but you're probably not going to make it if you don't have some kind of money to help you out. It's hard to do that. I mean, it took me years, literally, it took about 10 years being on here, that struggling to get and do the things that I thought was necessary for our community. So, I mean, I know the expense of this, and I think we all do. We know the expense, and so we're trying to make it to where, I just want people to be clear that we're not doing this for us, that we're trying to make it clear that other people can run that may not otherwise be able to afford to and do something. So, and I appreciate that you're bringing it up, because we do have an election coming up, and it makes it possible for us to pass something now so that the future council members can benefit. And I do appreciate that you brought this up. And I'm not against that. I mean, that would be a feasible thing. I think maybe, like I said, I've always not wanted us to have it at all, but I know that it is hard. And now that I'm here and I've been here, I know how hard it is to afford to go to the meetings over in Lakeport or Ukiah or wherever you have to go. I mean, people don't realize all the places that you go. So, so I'm playing with the numbers, but I'm not against giving us a raise, or giving the next council a raise, but it's the amount. And did you come up with that money just because it's kind of in the middle of the game?
I feel that's a comfortable number because it sits right in the middle of what other jurisdictions represent as far as a stipend. So I think that it's a fair, based off of our general population, I think that it's a very fair number for us to be at. But, more than anything, I just want to make sure that, as we leave the council, which is my intent, I won't be seeking re-election, but there's a commitment, an ongoing commitment I have to making sure that the right people take the seats on the dais after us. And the right people just got to have something in their heart saying they want to do something with this place and care about the place. And I just want to make sure that we reach out to as many people as possible to give them the opportunity to be able to do this. And I think that, 500 would be a step in the right direction. Obviously, more would be easier, but in the long run, but we don't want to be greedy for our council members. But I think that, like I said, even at the 500 mark, the truth of the matter is you're still spending more per year being a council member than you're getting in a stipend. There's no doubt. And many of us donate back to our community 10 times what our stipend is every year. So the community definitely receives a lot of benefit for what they contribute to us. So if you were to do a comparative on tax dollars, I think that the money afforded to keeping a quality council is hugely impactful to the outcome and the overall growth and success of our community. So yes, 500 would be my suggestion, plus the 5% per year.
Plus, and is that automatic in the ordinances, or we have to put that in the ordinance? The 5%?
Yeah. You'd have to put it in the ordinance. It is not automatic. So you could have a schedule, or you could just say it's $500 and then reassess, in a year or two or whatever you want to come back and make the changes at that point.
So what is your thought on that? You want the 5% put into the ordinance so that it's just an automatic?
This would be my concept. I would say 500 to start upon new election, and then 5% per year from then on.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I came into this meeting really on the fence. I wasn't sure how we felt about this. I really want to thank everyone who submitted comments, and I appreciate the council members' comments. And I want to add to some of the things Councilmember Harris said. When I was working on commission as an insurance agent, and I think maybe Councilmember Overton can also back me up on this, I lost a lot of money because I wasn't out making sales. I was going to meetings. So during those 2 years I sat as mayor, we were attending a lot of meetings. It absolutely hit my bottom line. And at tax time, when I was looking at my gross earnings, there was a significant shortfall years prior, just because there are a lot of meetings. So it isn't just about breaking even, and that's how I see the $300 that we receive per month, because we are driving meetings. We do need to go out and be in the community. But I also think this is kind of a rough time to be asking for a raise. So that's kind of why I was on the fence, but I appreciate everybody's comment. And I support your proposal.
Comments? Just to reiterate, I ran for councilor. I was appointed and ran for council because I had a passion for it. And certainly it was an eye opener of the cost of being on council. I don't regret that I ran and want to be on it. I still want to be on it, have a passion to help this city. But I struggled with it. I'm basically retired with my little agricultural ventures that still make me much money. But I don't, but that aside, I believe that the $500 is a reasonable amount. It's supported by the League of Cities analysis of other cities of our size and cities around us that are much smaller than we are. I support the 500. I'm not hard on the 5%. I think that 5% per year locked in may not be appropriate. When we're asking our employees to take less than 5% a year in some years, but the 500 a month, $200 raise to 500 is something. So, Vice Mayor, are you contemplating another comment?
Yes, yeah, I am. I really believe that this is the wrong time to do it. A lot of businesses are struggling, and to give ourselves a raise kind of like, no, it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. It's, besides the money part, the $200 is not going to bring super quality people in compared to that. That's not, people want to become councilmen to help the community. They do. There's not going to be any difference between $300 and $500, what kind of candidate you can get. So I'm opposed to this. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
Well, Mayor,
Mr. Deputy Attorney?
I'll let Councilman Robertson make a comment first. I just want to summarize so I know what my direction is, but go ahead.
Yeah, so we realize that we're not doing it now. And if we don't do something now, then it's at least 2 more years before we can do anything. This is not going into effect at this point. It's going into effect next year after an election. So it's kind of like the either now or, 2 years from now again. And like I said, I mean, we haven't had a raise for, 31 years, wasn't it? 31 years. And I know it's really great that we all can financially, but let me tell you what, when I got on city council, I after the first year, I came in and said I was going to have to resign, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I was losing not just money, not just the gas, but the money from my job. So it really was critical, and I can understand that part of it very, very well, that it's critical. And it just happened that I had a really nice boss that decided to put me on salary because he knew I wanted to do these things for my city. And that's the only way I was able to stay on council. So not everybody is going to have that generous boss that I had to help out because he cared about our city. So I think that's I was always against the 300 to start with, but now that I've been here for a while, I understand that you're right. There's a lot of people that you think it won't help, but it will help because it will let them and allow them to lose the hours at work in order to go to the meetings that they have to go to. So that's the only reason why I've changed my mind, because Russ would have, Uphill have, Mr. Harris had a point of, it is, there are people out there that this will, they want to run, but they have the feeling that they can't afford it. This will help supplement their income for that time. So, and that's the only reason why I changed my mind, because of that. I think that's totally appropriate, right? So, and it's not going to happen until after the pandemic's over. So I don't see a problem.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, so to summarize, Mayor, we'll come back at the next meeting. I heard a direction from majority of council members that we want to discuss this further. So we will draft a first reading of an ordinance. Maybe what I'll do is have 2 options, or at least have the option of the $500, and whether we want to do the ongoing percentage will be just for further discussion at the next meeting. And then council can decide at that point. And obviously there's a second reading even after that before coming into effect. But that's the direction I'm hearing.
I think that's correct. From the majority, I don't think we just need a consensus at this time, right? Not a vote. Okay, well, that's your consensus, and that's the direction I'm giving you. So we'll move on now to item number 6, discussion and direction regarding implementation of tobacco retail license program. And who is going to be presenting that? Mr. Jones?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So we're talking about a tobacco retail license and the idea of updating our tobacco ordinance. Currently, there is a moratorium that this council has approved on tobacco retail sales, including hookah lounges and smoke shops. That will be ending soon. And part of the discussion back in June of 2019, when the Lake County Tobacco Education Program came to me, a presentation on this, the direction from the council was we want to look at something, but some kind of ordinance. And the issue is funding. So to do a tobacco retail license, known as a TRL, there is administrative costs. You got to inspect the folks. You also have to, there's a collection of the fees, the licensing fees. And that's where Prop 56 came into effect, we hoped, and that is a grant that would help support this type of venture. That application will be submitted tomorrow. We don't know whether we'll get it, but we feel fairly confident that we're in a good position to get it, and that would support this program. So the reason we're coming to the council for further direction, otherwise we would have, if we had the grant, we would have provided the first reading of the ordinance now. But does the council still want to go forward with creating this ordinance when the funding is in limbo? I think staff's recommendation is we certainly could go forward and go through those steps of a first reading and second reading, and maybe in the midst of that, we'll know whether our grant was funded or not. But I just want to give the council a little update on what a TRL is. I know you had some background on that back in June of 19, but I'm sure memories fade a bit. And the idea is that there is a revenue component, there's a licensing that people who want to sell these products have to pay the city to operate. But there's also a regulatory component of it as well. And that is a limitation on how many of these businesses can be in the city of Clearlake, how close they can be to certain establishments. The fact that there would be, the discussion before would be a ban on flavored tobacco, because the aim of Prop 56 and the aim of this is to quell youth and minors' use of tobacco and related products. So what I'd like, and what I think what staff would like, is some direction from council. Do we continue to pursue this? And do you want to see the same types of elements that you gave us direction, a year ago at this point on what you wanted in it? And that is the limit of the number, that there'd be no TRLs for mobile vendors, there'd be no TRLs within 1,000 feet of youth populated areas, no TRLs for restaurants or bars, no sales of flavored tobacco products, including menthol cigarettes, and no sale of drug paraphernalia within the TRL business. So that's my report, and again, staff is happy to answer questions related to that.
Okay. Councilmember Burdock, do you have a question?
No, sir.
Councilmember Harris? Councilmember Rhodes?
Thank you. Is there any areas where they have had this in place that we have like financial estimations of what this might be? Because I mean, if we get a grant, great, but if we don't get a grant, what's going to be the financial? If we let do this, well, it's going to be, I don't see financial impact to our, I mean, do we have an idea of what that might be? Because that's my scary part right there. If we don't have the grant, we got to be scared to put this in and have a big chunk of our general fund going out when we have the money coming in.
I don't have an answer. I can tell you there are a number of cities that have this licensing program in place. We had samples of that. I think Benicia was one. There's a couple other that come to mind. But yeah, maybe that would be, if we're going to come back for a first reading, let you know what, if we don't get the grant, what significant costs are we talking about? There are administrative costs, but we can equate it to kind of like our cannabis program, right? We do licensing, and there are some revenues associated with that. And maybe Chief White knows a little bit about how much that costs us. Pardon?
I can provide a little bit of insight. The application that we submitted was for just over 400,000 to operate the program for 3 years. So we definitely wouldn't recommend implementing this program without some.
Without the grant. Okay. So if we went on to the first and second reading and we didn't get the grant, we just implement the program. Is that correct?
Right. Right. And what we could do potentially is maybe modify it and have certain regulations in place, but in terms of the licensing and inspection component, we may have to drop those because those are the expensive part in terms of staff time.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see something and some financial things behind it, an estimation. I know it can't be exact, but.
Well, I mean, there's probably some different ways to operate the program. I mean, the way that we had designed it and put it in the application to submit, like I said, would be to use some police officer time, and then also use a portion of time of one of our planners to help implement the program. And you're only allowed to submit for 3 years, and the application we put together that we think would be a robust program that would implement what the council had outlined earlier would be, I think it was around 490,000 or something.
And then after the 3 years, we would feel that we would be established enough that with the income coming in from the processing that would cover.
We would intend to keep applying for funding to operate the program.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Vice Mayor Sloop?
Question, vaping is all included in that, right?
Yes.
Has there been any reaction to our moratorium? Any from businesses that wanted to?
Well, I got one comment from one of the convenience stores that they don't like the flavored tobacco product, but I'm in favor of it. Put it that way.
In favor of
of the licensing and limiting no sales of flavored tobacco.
Yeah, so as far as the moratorium, there's really been only one situation that's came up during the moratorium period, which happened fairly recently. There was a cigarette store in town that was, I think, in the process of trying to maybe sell. I'm not sure exactly what will happen there, but I think that stopped happening. I don't know if it was related to moratorium or not, but it's been closed down during COVID, but they do intend to open up again. The sale deal fell through. And so based on the moratorium, we still issue a new business license to them because it was, the same loan. That's really the only other circumstance that I'm aware of.
Okay, no more questions. I'm going to open this up to public comment. The clerk, we have only one.
There's a couple that I'll read from the open
Okay.
town hall.
Same rule applies, 3 minutes.
This one's not that long. It says, I apologize for this email being beyond 4 p.m., but I have been trying to draft this while taking care of issues at the office for the past 4 hours. For who will enforce such a program? Code enforcement seems to be understaffed based on the current activity of what appears to be a backlog of code enforcement issues throughout the city. Your program, as suggested, would limit tobacco retailers to 7 to 8. Just driving town, I count at least 9. I am not certain if grocery outlet or the small market on Lakeshore Drive sell tobacco, so they are not included. One smoke shop on Lakeshore Drive has closed, and the smoke shop close to grocery outlet is closed for remodel. So neither of them are included in the 9. If you are going to rely on grant money to start the program, fees will have to be secured high enough to eventually provide the cost of staff to enforce, which indicates they would probably be expensive. Isn't tobacco sales licensed by the state or federal government? Do we need another layer of government? I'm not sure what the definition of a smoke shop is, but if you want to control smoke shops and hookah or vapor lounges, that seems a different issue than retail tobacco. I also feel it is a stretch to prevent sales of menthol tobacco products, since many people smoke menthol cigarettes. For TRL implementation, it seems all of the items listed could be handled with an ordinance rather than licensing program. The staff report mentions Prop 56 funds would be awarded to enforce state law, including the items listed: retailer license compliance checks, retailer training programs, etc. So can we apply for a grant without enacting the licensing program? If you want to regulate hookah and vape lounges, enact an ordinance for those. While the program might be well-intentioned, especially when it comes to younger people and smoking, another layer of regulation and fees do not seem justified. David argues.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk, Claire Moniz, Meeting Manager for.
Yes, honorable council members. Considering the grotesquely severe wildfire danger we now live under, and that I constantly find cigarette butts in dry grass among our streets, methinks all sales of cigarettes should be banned. Countless addicts will scream bloody murder, yes, but this is surely an urgent matter of life and death and should be enacted immediately on that basis. Most cordially, Elliot Ness.
Where's that from?
Elliot Ness. Okay. The other one here. In regards to the decision for implementing of the tobacco retail license, there are several issues that I think must be definitely addressed. As I am sure that many others will also contest, the ban of flavored tobacco products will undoubtedly lead to a reduction of tax collected from sales within city limits. However, those that are going to purchase these products can simply drive to the neighboring city, and the tax that would be collected would be diverted to those cities. It is much more reasonable to instead use the money to launch awareness campaigns showing the risks and long-term consequences of underage use. Various studies published by both the CDC and FDA have shown that awareness alone is sufficient in curtailing underage use. Furthermore, I think that it's also quite evident that by proposing such limitations, there will be negative ramifications on the livelihoods of many that run businesses that rely heavily on such sales. This proposition is not fixing the issues that are relevant, but instead is simply creating new ones. And then why the city of Clearlake is stopping new tobacco licenses to come in the city. Clearlake brings more people and business to the city. Almost all the cities around have 3 or 5 smoke shops. Clearlake is the only city without a single smoke shop in it. We have no smoke shop in the city, and it would be a good place to start a new business for a person like me who is suffering through tough times in COVID-19. Please consider giving it a new tobacco license. That's all the comments we received. I would add, I don't know if that there is someone, I believe, from public health that is on Zoom. So if there's any questions that the council have that they would like them to address, we could probably get them online. So.
Okay, does council want to address any questions to the public health?
I would like to see it.
Okay, bring it on.
I believe that Liberty Perry has spoken before this council.
I'm sorry, can what you say?
I believe it's Liberty Perry who's spoken before this council.
Yes, I recognize her. Good evening. Vice Mayor Foden, did you have a question?
No, I assume that you have overheard our conversation there. Do you have anything to add?
Can you hear us?
You might be able to speak a little closer, Mike.
Yeah, I can hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes. We were asking if you had anything to add to the information that was already brought out.
I am aware of the DOJ grant that you were speaking of earlier that can help with funding for enforcement, but the tobacco retail license usually has a fee attached to it, which pays for funding for staff to organize the tobacco retail licenses, to give the permits, to help with enforcement as well. So you as a board, if you choose to do a tobacco retail license, then you would also choose what type of fee you would want attached to that.
That would be part of the study that you do in the recommendations.
Well, I mean, like all of our fees, they're based on the calculation of the staff time needed to process the permit or whatever it is. So, obviously, if that's something that the council wanted to do, by having grant funding to pay for that for a few years, we would be able to develop a pretty good idea on how much staff time is required and could adjust any fees as necessary.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for sitting in for all this time.
Yes, for sure.
So we'll bring it back to council now for,
Actually, I do have a question for Liberty.
oh, you do have.
I do. Liberty, do you have the numbers of per capita smokers in Lake County and in Clear Lake available? You're muted.
You're muted.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I wasn't prepared to speak tonight. I was just prepared to take notes, but that's something we can definitely bring back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Yours? Councilmember Overton?
Yeah, as long as we come back with this, with some kind of figures on estimation anyway, of what it would cost if we didn't get the grant. I'd like to have something feasible here to tell us what our impacts might be. That, and even if we didn't get the grant, I mean, we're still gonna have to spend some money. I don't believe the grant's gonna cover everything. We have to put some kind of money up, don't we?
Well, we'll see what we hear from
The grant doesn't require you to put any percentage up this off, okay, all right, let's see what's there.
I mean, I think, I don't know if Chief White wants to say anything. I mean, he has talked to a couple other agencies that have received the grant and administered the program. And, I think there's funding there that is not maybe widely utilized. So it's not like a lot of funding sources where there's a lot of competition for it, it sounds like.
Just think I tread this very lightly because, are we going to go around and tell people they can't drink now and we can't buy alcohol in our things, or are we going to become a dry city? We need to look at these things because this is people's lives. And I think education to me is really more the way to go is education, because we're starting to restrict people from doing things. And like, I agree with one of our comments was they're just going to go to another town anyway. You're not going to stop these people that want to do it, but I do think education for the kids, because that's who we're directing this for, is to prevent the kids from doing this. So we might want to seriously look at this as really violating people's rights, and it's not going to stop them from doing it. So I think the education part is more what I would like to do with the money, and not prevent people from, I don't mind getting the fees from them and having a registration so we know who's selling it. But, but I don't want to necessarily limit what they're selling.
Absolutely. Do you have any-
No, I don't have any other questions. I'd like to move forward with this.
Not quite. No, not yet. I don't think that we're looking at banning tobacco. I think we're looking at a licensing model. And I don't have any problem with that. I do think we should educate our people and our old people too, for that matter. But it's a licensing program that we're being asked to comment on and provide direction to staff on. For my part, I would like to see that implementation go forward, along with going forward on the with the grant, and hopefully we get it, and hopefully over a couple of years if it's in place, we can figure out what it's costing to maintain the program and adjust as necessary. If we don't get it, well, I still think we need to be looking at the fees and see if we can provide a licensing program within our own budget and have it covered by fees. My thoughts. Now, open for a motion.
Direction's fine.
Okay.
Just based on a couple of comments that came up, I did want to just point out, it's my understanding that the county is also looking at doing some type of program like this, so that's going to limit the just trout from Clearlake Oaks thing a little bit. But it hasn't happened yet, but my understanding is they are working.
Do you have anything to add on that? The county? No.
I have to ask her. Yeah.
That's Liberty.
Liberty?
Liberty?
Am I still muted?
Do you have anything to add with regard to what the county is doing on the licensing program?
To my knowledge, they have asked for information just as your board has. And they are looking at the different options for the county as well.
Okay. You don't have any specifics at this point?
Not at this time, no. Bruno might be able to elaborate on that.
Yeah, we've only discussed it where we haven't come back with it. COVID-19 kind of stalled a lot since public health was directing that discussion, and with public health being so involved with what's happening at COVID-19, it's just been on the back burner. But we were provided with a lot of options. The TRL was one of those options, and we were interested in all of the above that was introduced to us to come back at a future date. So hopefully we'll be coming back to that just as you are talking about it right now.
Thank you, Supervisor Sabache. So you want to poll council? I think that it appears that we're all in favor of you going forward with?
Sounds that way. So as long as that's fine, my understanding is we would, the funding would be available probably sometime at the beginning of the year. And so I guess we'll keep our eye on response to our application for that, and then, come back with details on what that work will look like at that time.
Okay, so in the meantime, this moratorium is going to expire on August 13th.
Yes, it is. I don't know if Attorney Jones wants to jump in, but my understanding is that the council has extended it as far as it can be extended. There's not the opportunity to extend it any further. That's right.
Well, I guess the sooner that we.
Yeah, and, just to clarify, this was explained in the staff report that Ms. wants to put together, but, we've been waiting on funding availability to be able to implement this, and this funding availability just happened within the last, I think, 30 days, so that's why you're seeing it now, and the moratorium is expiring.
Well, we have to live with that, so. Move forward in implementation. And we'll move forward now to city manager and council member reports. City manager report.
Okay, I will be very brief. Candidate filing for city council is open for new candidates through next Friday, the 14th. If you're interested in that, you need to get papers from the city clerk, collect a number of signatures, and then have everything submitted on Friday of next week. The animal control yard is coming along. I think pretty much all of the concrete was installed maybe yesterday. There's just kind of final details to be happening out there, and we're hoping that everything will be complete within the next couple of weeks on that project. If you do have the opportunity to swing in there and take a look, you will notice that this is one of the reasons that we're working quite feverishly on identifying a location for the public works yard, because that expansion and all the equipment that our public works crew has now has created quite a space crunch there at that facility. So, and then the final thing that I just wanted to point out is Chief White was notified earlier this week of receipt of and completion of his post-executive certificate course, which is happens to a very small number of folks in the industry. I'm told 1% of the post certificates or less are executive certificates, so I think it's quite an accomplishment. We'll be making an exception to having a member of the public join us at our next council meeting. So a member of the post senior executive team is going to be coming and presenting Chief White with that certificate in person at our next council meeting. So congratulations to Chief White on that achievement. That's
it. Council member Purdock.
I only attended one meeting, that was the Lake County Transit and Lake ABC. Really nothing significant to report.
Council member Harris.
I've been gone, and I appreciate everybody stepping up for me in my absence. And prior to that, no meetings, but I have been involved in some renovation projects at the youth center. And I don't know if anybody saw it, but I did a video yesterday. I did a walkthrough of our new park, and it's enlightening to see all of the community members participating in the park in the way that you would imagine any park having participation. It was just exciting to see the kids on the skateboards and on their bikes and playing in their equipment. So it's really, really a unique experience to be part of that. And I can't wait to see the continued growth we have in the future. It's really benefiting our community greatly. So thank you for everybody's efforts, including obviously the staff and everybody putting these projects together.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Overton.
Well, first, congratulations to our chief. We're very proud of you, and we're very lucky to have you here. So
Kim. Look forward to you getting your plaque and your certificate. One thing I've been meeting with several meetings of constituents about different things in our community. And one thing I want you guys to do is, if you can, we had one of our gardeners' daughters came up who is a artist, and hopefully be joining us with some proposals for the city. But in order for her to prove how great she was, she did this beautiful sign for the Clearlake Community Garden over there. So I was going to try and take a picture before I got over here, but I wasn't able to. But please, everybody go by and see. She did a really great job, and it really just stands out that we have a community garden there, and the garden's beautiful. Everybody's been doing a really great job this year. Finally, it takes some years to get these things really going, but I have to say I'm really proud that our garden has really come to light. So I hope you guys all would like to see that things. And then I've just been working with some community groups on some different things that they'd like to do here, and when I get to that point of ideas, and maybe they'll come and do a presentation. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Overton. Vice Mayor Sloan?
Also, congratulations to Chief White. Awesome, thank you. I visited the animal control, and then, yeah, it's just about there. It's kind of, I think the only thing that they were missing was the center area where they supposed to put some astroturf in there. It's great. The rest of the mural is being painted on the building at Austin Park. I don't know, I've tried to take a picture of the one with a big dragonfly, and it's actually the same size as a person. So if you can imagine how that works, you can get your picture by looking like a big dragonfly. So that's pretty cool. That's it. I didn't go to any meetings today.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Sloan. I also attended the LTA APC meeting with Councilmember Burdock. I guess the only thing that was really kind of exciting was the announcement of the groundbreaking, which was also on local news, of Highway 29 Expressway project, which will, I guess, go on potentially till 2022 for application completion. And again, my congratulations to you as well, Chief White. That is slightly, pretty exciting to me. I passed my CTA last week, so I'm now a certified tourism ambassador. And that was kind of a fun morning. I enjoyed doing it. Found out there are some things about Lake County's history that I don't know. So that's all I had to report. Future agenda items. Councilmember Burdock, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Councilmember Harris? Nothing. Councilmember Overton? And Vice Mayor Sloan?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. City Manager, you got anything on the?
We have a few things coming up, yes.
All right. You did in your report, you had an oversight committee meeting last week.
Oh, well, yeah, we did have your Measure B, yeah, we did have a Measure B meeting last week. And so that was actually a pretty lengthy meeting. We hadn't had one for a while, had some good discussion. We're going to have another meeting either at the end of September or the beginning of October. We'll be reviewing the 1920 final expenses. We close our books at the end of August, so that'll give us a little time to get that report out to the committee. And then after that meeting, they'll be bringing some type of formal information or stamp of approval back to the city council.
I have a question. Was there any public comment on there?
No, I don't think there was any members of the public.
Okay. So I think we've come to the end of the evening. Unless there's anything else from anyone, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 7:45. Thank you, Liberty.
Bye, Liberty.
She's muted. Bye, Liberty. We can't hear you, but you can hear us, I think. Have a good night.
Have a great night. Thanks.
Was that ice cream good?